Unfortunately, most of us have some sort of traumas in all varying sizes, myself included, and for a large part of my life, I thought that was something I just had to accept was part of me. Sure, therapy helps, but it never took away that feeling of automatic emotional responses to triggering situations, you know? But have you ever read or heard something where it's just like your whole understanding of your existence changes? I had that recently from reading my already beloved book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. I'll link it down below. He describes a horrible animal experiment done by Stephen Meyer and Martin Seligman, where encaged dogs were being exposed to electric shocks. In the beginning, the dogs tried to escape, but after realizing their fate of being locked inside the cages, they gave up. The eye-opening part to this experiment was that when they opened the cages, the dogs didn't escape. This, while similar experiments with another batch of control dogs in open cages showed that they would escape every time they were shocked, which, makes good sense. So why didn't the first dogs escape when they finally had the chance? As he writes in his book, the mere opportunity to escape does not necessarily make traumatized animals or people take the ride to freedom. Rather than risk experimenting with new options, they stay stuck in the fear they know. And as simple as this might sound, confirming to myself in triggering situations that my trauma is over and that I can leave the cage actually helps. Because my emotional responses to triggering situations are as if I'm still encaged, like the dogs. But I'm not. And I guess I have a hope that the more I repeat that fact to myself, the more my nervous system might start to realize it. Realize that I am okay now, and that I am free. Van der Kolk goes on to explain how scared animals will return home regardless of whether home is safe or frightening, and how for traumatized people, re-exposure to stress might provide anxiety relief. This all too made sense, because that is what we know and what is familiar after all. This would explain why people seek other people who reminds them of family trauma. Inspired by Danish love expert and ph.d. Jytte Vikkelsøe, who says that you will fall in love with someone who hurts you by having characteristics that remind you of past traumas, which you have unconsciously been appealed towards. But someone who also holds the ability to set you free by meeting you in your trauma and by loving you through them. I think childhood trauma is such a difficult thing because not only is it so subjective from person to person, both how it feels and how it affects our daily lives, but also, despite what people might think, is something that many of us have to accept as part of us, and it will always be. And of course, there are people that are just acing their self-development and might not feel it at all, but for most of us, if we have some sort of childhood trauma, and that can look like so many different things. It can be physical, it can be psychological, but it is difficult because most people that don't understand and don't relate to it, they kind of expect us to get over it, process it, get better. And I think that is an issue with a lot of other mental challenges, such as if you have depression or anxiety, obviously there are so many great tools out there, but it's something that we can't just get over. But most of us have to accept that while we can work with it, we can't just cut it out, but we can get something positive out of it. And so a year ago, I started therapy. I had gone to therapy before, but I kind of started again, and I had new hopes for what this might bring, and I had found a new therapist, and she's very well acknowledged within this field of family trauma or emotional regulation. And if you have triggers in your life and you kind of sometimes react more to it than you would have if you didn't have this trauma with you. And I found her and I asked her, so my question was from the beginning, what do you do when you just really want a family to love and who will love you, and they're just not fulfilling your basic needs, and maybe they have never done that? So what do you do? Should you just accept how it is and stay in the relation and just kind of accept that things will not be different? Or should you talk to them and really try to work around the problem, maybe go to therapy with them and, keep this hope that things might be better along the road? Or should you accept that these relations, no matter how much they maybe try or how much they might love you, they just don't meet your basic needs and they keep disappointing you and they keep making you sad, and the best thing for you is to cut them out of your life. Maybe not entirely, but as much as you need. So what is the answer to this question? And now a year has gone by, and obviously I figured out that it's not that simple because, as I said, trauma is so subjective, and some might benefit from going with option B, some might benefit from A and C, you never know. But I realized that I have, in these moments of triggered trauma, I have kind of developed this mindset that being alone is good. And there's nothing wrong with being alone. Being alone is a very good thing, and you can see in my videos that I have gone on many trips alone and it's been so good for my well-being. But there's something called hyper-independence, which can be a trauma response, because if we have learned that close relations can only disappoint us or make us sad, then we can develop this kind of non-existing need of close relations to others. And I realized that in moments of sorrow or loneliness, that this was kind of the road I was going down of. And my therapist definitely disappointed me in that regard, because she told me having these Buddhistic monk, this mindset is definitely not the worst thing, but you will never be as happy in life alone compared to how happy you could be in close relation to others. And if your family is not meeting those needs, they're not loving you the way that you long for, they keep disappointing you, they keep making you sad, and having a relation to them is more of a negative thing than a positive thing, then you need to find your family in other people, because we need family, but we can't choose who our family is. And that just opened a gate for me for the rest of the day. I was so sad, and I was happy that I was sad, because for a long time I'd kind of been sedated and tried to tell myself that, I don't need close relations. I mean, I do have so many friends that I care about and that I love, but I do struggle reaching out to them when I just need someone and when I'm really sad, because in a way I feel like, I don't want to put that upon them. But with family, it's like, that's what they're there for. So it's okay to reach out to my family if I am sad, but it's not okay to reach out to my friends, because my friends are super busy and so am I. And so, once you meet, you want to talk about something positive. And I only want to talk about negative things if it dynamically comes up. But I definitely realized that I need to do better, because it's not always just about telling people how you feel. We also need to think about how we don't just dump all our baggage onto other people who might have baggage themselves, but letting them know how you feel and just being around other people while you're maybe not the best version of yourself, without expecting them to do anything specific to make you feel better, but simply just showing them how you feel. That is definitely a key that she taught me, and that is definitely something that I am working on with her. But just to circle back to my first question and the A, B, and C option, what I realized after a year working with her has worked for me, and at the moment works well for me, is to have, I guess you can call it, a superficial relation to these family members that I struggle with, because I realized that around holidays I do want to say Merry Christmas or Happy Birthday. I don't want to have that kind of feeling that I cannot talk to them at all, because I have had periods of time where I've had to kind of pause the relation for a while, and whenever I did hear from them in those times, it would bring up so many feelings, because I had kind of invested so much into not having anything to do with them. And so just hearing the name or getting a message from them would kind of disturb that peace. And obviously that's just how I am, and maybe I could work on that as well. But I definitely have realized that having a relation to them that is just not as deep work well for me. But I have realized that whenever I see them often, that is when my wish thinking starts. Because I keep thinking that these family members that are unstable in the way that I never know where I have them, and sometimes I can just hear on their voice that today is just not a good day, or some days are great days. But this instability and the fact that I sometimes get a really great relation and sometimes I don't, then when I do get this really nice version of them, that is when my wish thinking start, and I keep thinking, oh, what if they've changed? What if we can work on this? And oh, what if I could get this relation that I've always dreamed about? And that just is the most toxic thing to me, because I just get so hung up on this idea of how it could be. And I just feel this kind of disappointment whenever I do have an appointment with them and they don't show up, or I don't hear from them and it's always me reaching out, and these small things that disappoint me just hurt so badly. And so what I've realized is that the more I see them, the more I get my hopes up. And to protect myself, I need to see them rarely. Before, I would actually say once a month is the maximum, and preferably less. And I do have periods of time where I slip and, oh, it was such a good day, let's meet again. But the more I see them, the more hung up on the idea I get, and then when they disappoint, it hurts like a heartbreak times 100. And I just don't want to put myself in that pain anymore. And it definitely helps to have other family members kind of helping me, guiding me to say, don't get your hopes up, because they can see in my face sometimes when I just hope for the best. They're like, Tris, we know you really want this, but just know you could get disappointed, and please just don't get your hopes too much up. And that definitely helps a lot. So yeah, I think that kind of concludes what I just wanted to share with you. And again, I just want to address the fact that trauma in all sizes, in all forms, is so subjective, and what works for me might not work for you, and people without trauma might not even understand what I'm talking about. But I hope everyone will be respectful, because we're all different, and if we're working towards bettering ourselves, if we're working towards getting greater tools, talking to someone, then we're doing the best we can. And we're all doing that at different speeds, but we will get there. We will get to a point where we manage our lives, where the things that trigger us, we know how to deal with. And so I just hope that this video will be a motivation for those of you who might not yet have opened up about this to anyone, maybe a therapist or a friend or one of those family members that you actually have a good relation with. The first step might be the most difficult, but once you start that journey of self-development, you learn so much, and it's really worth it, because you get to know how to not only manage your life, but also how to explain your needs and your personality to other people, maybe to a new partner. You can much better explain to them how you work and what happens inside of you, and why these situations might trigger you more than others. So yeah, I hope this video can be a motivation to open up about that and to accept this beautiful being that you are, and know that while trauma is such a hard thing, and sometimes we might think, why do we feel this way when others don't? What have we done to deserve this? Just remember, the trauma makes you sensitive, it makes you beautiful, it makes you able to feel more intensely, and while that sometimes might feel like a negative thing, it can be a positive thing as well. So love yourself how you are. I need to say that to myself as well, and that's why I make these videos. It's to reflect on my thoughts and also force myself to take my own advice sometimes. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, it would mean so much if you want to like and subscribe. And I hope you'll stay tuned for more similar videos where I talk about these kind of hard topics that most of us struggle opening up about or talking to our friends about. I really want to take all these themes, talk about them, and make it into something somewhat positive. At least put a positive angle on it. That's my hope, at least. I hope you'll have an amazing day, and I hope you want to stay tuned. Bye!